Today I'm going to be talking about myself and my journey on how I became a wedding photographer. Hi everyone, just wanted to welcome you to my first official vlog, and what better way to start off than to talk about my photography journey and how I got into this career and became a wedding photographer and what drew me to this lifestyle and this job to begin with. So I wanted to start off with a little bit of my background. I grew up in Southern California, and not the beach part. I grew up in actually the desert part with literal tumbleweeds that would get stuck in your landscaping, and 100+ degree weathers. Everybody had pools in their backyards. So that's kind of how I grew up. And my first couple jobs, when I turned 16, I was a lifeguard at the swimming pool. So I love being outside, I love being by the water, and I would do that in the mornings and the afternoons, and then in the evenings I would scoop ice cream at Baskin Robbins. So those were my first couple jobs that I had growing up. When it came time to graduate high school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my life. Both my parents were teachers, and I really loved the draw to teaching, being able to serve other people and be organized, and I also loved the schedule that teachers had. My parents were always, home whenever we needed them. Anyways, there was just a lot of appeal to being a teacher. I just didn't know that I actually wanted to do what they did and teach grade school. So my mom introduced me to the career of speech therapy. I went to her school and I shadowed her speech therapist, and they had a lot of the same draws as teaching did, but they were working in smaller groups, like maybe with 1 or 2 people, and I just really loved that. It had a lot of the things that teaching had that drew me in, that organization, being able to help people, but it was in a smaller setting. You're working with, smaller groups of people and being able to really get to know them. And anyways, so that's kind of what initially drew me to speech therapy. And during my freshman year of college, one of my roommates had her best friend over, and her friend was the same age as us, had just graduated high school, and owned a photography and videography business and was getting paid to do jobs. And I just thought that was so cool that she was 18 years old and so young and started a business, was doing super creative things with her photography and videography, and she was able to make money at it. And just that's was kind of my first introduction to my career that I have now. I had no idea that people that age could own businesses. I just thought that old people owned businesses, and that you had to go to college and do all these things to have that kind of life. And meeting her was my first introduction to that. Fast forward 2 years, I met my husband, we got engaged, and we were planning our wedding. And my first time meeting my wedding photographer, I went to her house, and she had a home office in her home. She was a stay-at-home mom. She, told me everything that she did with her brides and grooms and just the type of photography experience that she offered. And I was just super envious of her life. I loved that she could be a part of someone's wedding day in such an intimate way and be able to serve her brides and grooms and give them photos to remember their wedding day, which I thought was so amazing and so important for those brides and grooms that hired her. I also loved that she got to be creative and she got to stay at home and be a mom and work from home and have flexible hours. It just seemed like the wedding photography life checked off all the boxes for me that speech therapy or teaching couldn't. Obviously, I was in the middle of my speech therapy degree. I didn't want to stop my degree because I, wanted to have that as kind of a backup in case wedding photography didn't work out, but I had no intentions of doing speech therapy after I graduated college. My husband ended up getting into medical school in Pennsylvania. We moved across the country, and I was actually really grateful I had my degree because I was able to start working at the school district right away, because when your spouse is in medical school, they can't have a job and they don't make any money. So it was really up to me to pay the bills and be able to afford anything that we needed in our lives. I worked really hard for a year and a half. I did lots of networking, second shooting, associate shooting, paid for workshops and mentoring sessions, and basically just did everything under the moon that I can think of to help grow my photography business. And thankfully, after a year and a half, I was able to make enough money where I quit my school district job and I just pursued my wedding photography full time, that was my dream. I was so excited to be able to do that. And it was during that time that we moved out of our tiny apartment into a townhouse. We got our dog Boris. We were able to go on lots of trips. Just felt like, all of my dreams were coming true, and that having a career in wedding photography just gave me the life and the job that I really wanted from the beginning. So that's kind of how I got into wedding photography. Now we live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My husband got into anesthesia residency here, so we've been here for about 2 years. Boris is here with us, our dog, and I'm still doing wedding photography, and it's just such a blessing. And anyways, that was kind of my journey on how I initially got interested in photography, how I was able to get into it full time, and just kind of where I am nowadays in my career. I'm super excited to start more of this vlogging and just sharing more tips and tricks for brides and grooms for their wedding days, as well as more business things in photography and things that I have learned to progress my business into where it is today. So thank you so much for joining me on this first video, and I'm excited to have you along for more videos in the future.